that your family members can join you as a student through the family reunion visa. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, please subscribe. Ishbin Alphonsine. If this is your first time, of course you subscribe, like, share, and comment. That whatever I am about to discuss here is just a guide for you to follow. It is not what is exactly asked at the embassy. So it depends from embassy to embassy, and it depends from person to person. So please, this is just a guide, as I said. Okay, so let's look at how your family member can join you as a student through family reunion. It will also depend on the number of children you have. Are you bringing just your children? Are you bringing your husband also? Yes, so, and you should also know that it's not any type of family member that you can bring along whilst you are studying. Remember, it's just your children, your biological children, and if you have any adopted ones, your husband or your parents who can join you. But most of the times, students will like their spouses to join them, okay, and their children also. So please, if you are a female or a male student, your spouse can join you as to Germany, whether you are on the DAD scholarship or not. Please, I repeat, whether you are on the DAD scholarship or not, you can bring your family along to Germany as a student. So if you want to bring your family member to Germany as a student, or your spouse as a student, then you should note that the number of years given to you is the same number of years that will be given to your spouse and your children, okay, for the residence permit. So if you come to Germany and, for instance, you go and extend your residence permit, if you are given 1 year, and within that 1 year you are able to bring your spouse and your children along, your family, then you should also note that this 1 year will be given to your spouse and your child, because they are dependent on you, right? Please note that they are dependent on you. Your visa, okay, that you have is what your dependents will also have. If you are having a master's degree for 2 years, and in the first year you are being given 1 year, and during that 1 year, as I said, you are able to bring your spouse and your children, then of course they will also have 1 year. So the processing time for getting a family reunion visa can take as long as 3 months and even over, but it actually depends on the consulate or the embassy. Okay, so you should check at your respective embassies and know how long it takes to get a family reunion visa. Also, it might take less months to get the visa, and in some countries long to get the visa, because they have to check all the documents and know that the documents are all intact, and so that it will be processed for you to get your visa. So one thing you should also know, that your spouse can work whilst he or she gets to Germany. So once you are given the visa, you are given like 3 months from your home country to Germany. So once you arrive, you have to go to the Ausländerbehörde, the foreign office, to convert your visa into a permanent. So once you are being given that resident permit, your spouse can actually work in Germany, okay? And of course, you as a student can also work, which I always say in my videos. Let's move on to the requirements that you would have to get for you to send it to your home country. Then your spouse can get the can send these documents to the embassy for the appointment and the interview, and of course the visa can be processed. Now, as a student, please, if your spouse is joining you, then you need to prove accommodation. You need to have enough accommodation for your spouse. For instance, if you live in a student hostel, which is like 60 square or 18 meters square, you should know that you and your spouse cannot stay in the same room, because in Germany, it is assumed that a person can live, like a student can live in at least the minimum at least should be 16 meter. Okay, so if you are living in such a small apartment, or even if it's a shared apartment that you are living in a small room, you should know that this your partner, okay, or your spouse cannot join you. You have to get a bigger accommodation. You have to get a bigger apartment. Okay, so if you get like 30 meters square or whichever apartment, and this also comes with money, okay, because you also have to save. You like to save some money. Okay, so this is where the dilemma comes from. So if you are bringing your spouse and your children too as well, you should know that then you should get a bigger apartment. So I know someone who had to bring her husband, and she was staying in a shared apartment. Now what they asked was that she had to tell the other flatmate that this was a situation. At that time she was pregnant. This was a situation, and if the flatmate could agree, then she can write a letter for the flatmates to also sign to confirm that they have agreed. Because normally if you have a flat, they actually do not count the number of rooms. Okay, they use the square meter to determine how big the flat is. Okay, so this is an advantage, right? So if your flatmates also agree that okay, your husband can come and join you, then you can write a letter to you write a letter, your flatmates will also agree and sign. Then you can send this letter to Studentenwerk. Okay, so when Studentenwerk sees it, then they will also give you a letter that okay, your flatmates have approved that your husband can join you. Okay, so in that case, you can have my friend, for instance, that I'm talking about. She had the opportunity, and during that time, her husband was able to come, okay, to Germany. Now, as soon as they came, they had to move because the place was actually too small for them. So they had to move to get a bigger apartment. Okay, so if you are bringing your spouse, just your spouse, then I think that if you are staying in a shared apartment, you can use that, okay, the shared apartment to bring your spouse. But when your children are included, I don't think that all your children can occupy, especially if you have a child, 2 children, 3 children, 4 children, they cannot occupy the shared apartment. So what you have to do is that you move and get a bigger apartment. So in that case, you can take this this contract, the rental contract, and send it to him, okay, to prove to the embassy that okay, my spouse or my wife or my husband has this apartment which can contain myself and my children and my wife. Okay, so this is one thing you should note. Accommodation, very, very important. But when you are staying in a single just a room, you are staying in just a room where the square meter is just small, that you do not share anything with anybody, you have your own kitchen and bathroom and stuff like that, then it will be very, very difficult for you to bring your spouse, because where you cannot in Germany you have to get an apartment. You have to get a bigger apartment that can accommodate everybody. They will not allow you to, perch your spouse like that in a small room. No. Also note that you should have sufficient money to yourself and your partner or your family, right? So if you have enough money, then you can prove to the embassy that my spouse in Germany, which you have to print your bank statement and send it to your husband, that my spouse in Germany has this amount of money, that's for myself and my family. Okay, you should have enough amount of money which you will not rely on public funds, right? It's different when you're a DAD student, or when you're a DAD student, you have had the funds already. All right, so it's not like your spouse and your children are coming to depend on them. You have had the funds already, and it is laudable that your spouse and your children come to join you. But if you are not on a DAD scholarship, you should prove that you have enough funds to cover both your family and your children. Because mind you, yes, your spouse has a visa, and when he comes he can work, but when he comes he cannot work that very moment. Space of 3 months for him to convert his visa into a resident permit. So that space alone, you should have some sufficient amount of money for him to also depend on. So you should know that as a student, it's like you have to get like 861 euros, almost 900 euros. Okay, so if you are bringing your husband, let's assume your husband is spending also 900 euros for 3 months. If you are bringing your children, okay, your children, it's assumed that your children will also spend like 400 to 500 euros a month. Okay, so you should have that amount of money in your account. Of course, one thing you can also do is that your husband or your spouse in your home country can also prove that he has sufficient amount of money with his bank statement to finance himself and maybe his children. Okay, then that one can be accepted. So let's come to the age, especially with the children. If you are bringing your children, okay, and if the children are less than 18 years, then they need not to go and do the language course. Husband also has to do A1, and this language has to be passed. Your husband has to pass the language by getting 80% and above or so. So it's very, very important. Let me also tell you that as you are coming, when you as a student gets the visa and you are coming, you cannot bring your husband and your children, or your spouse and your children together at a go. You cannot bring them at a go to Germany. What you have to do is that you have to come first. You, the student, has to come first. Okay, look for a place to settle, look for an apartment, look for this and that and all stuff. Then when you are settled, then you can bring your spouse and your children along. Okay, because study the terrain, look for accommodation. Okay, because you as a student can apply to any student hostel for you to get an accommodation. Okay, but your husband is not a student, so your husband cannot apply for any student hostel. Please, I hope it's clear. So you have to come first, settle the place, then you go and bring them for them to join you. Okay, and in so doing, one of the requirements is that they get the A1 certificate, which is done at the Goethe Institute. One thing you should note is that you and your husband have to register your marriage before you had your German student visa. Okay, you cannot say you are married without any certificate or any proof, right? Whilst you are taking your German visa, your German student visa, it doesn't make sense. So what you have to do is that you have to get your marriage certificate whilst you are applying for your German student visa. Then in that case, the embassy will know that really you are indeed married. And when you come, you can take this certificate, whether translated into German. Then this certificate can serve as like a supporting document for your husband, okay, or your wife, your spouse, whichever, for him or her to get the visa and come. You should know that all the lists you are supposed to get to apply for your family reunion visa are stated in the respective embassy's website. Okay, this is just a guide, and these are some of the petty things you should note in order to fulfill them, so your visa would be given to you. Generally, the things that you should have, the general things you should have is the checklist, okay, for you to submit your visa is the completed application form, of course, a declaration form which you should also sign, your passport picture, your current biometric passport photos. Okay, so the first page of your passport data should also be there, and of course your marriage certificate, your marriage certificate, and you as the student in Germany should also provide your residence permit, okay, to the consulate in your home country, and your birth certificate, okay, and the invitation letter from the spouse in Germany, okay, should also be included, and the proof of funds, your bank statement should also be there, your registration address. Of course, when you come, you have to, the first thing you have to do is to register your address, which is called the Meldbescheinigung, okay, which should be done at the city, in your city, confirming your address. And then your proof of accommodation is also another thing, as I have said earlier, the lease contract or the letter from your landlord, like confirming that you are staying in a specific area or a dormitory. Okay, so if you are staying in a Studentenweg hostel, then this can be taken from the Studentenweg. Okay, now you should know that if you are staying in a shared apartment, okay, this letter you are taking from shared apartment cannot be sent straight to the embassy. Normally, if you are staying in a Studentenweg hostel and it's a shared apartment, then Studentenweg will tell you to take this letter from your co-tenant. So when you take the letter from your co-tenant and give it to Studentenweg, then they will write a letter to attach it so you can send it to your home country or to your spouse in your home country. Then he can send it to the embassy. Okay, also provide his or her health insurance, okay, and your spouse has to also prove his travel health insurance. So all these things are the basic requirement, but depending on the embassy, okay, the requirements might differ. You might add some one or two things to it, but these are the common checklists that before you'll be able to submit your application. Of course, you should know that all these documents must be submitted in the original copies with two photocopies, attached photocopies. So as you know, getting an appointment at the German embassy, for instance, in Ghana, I am from Ghana, so I'll talk about Ghana, is very, very stressful. So if you are doing that for your spouse, you should make sure that you plan ahead and consider things in advance, okay? Just prepare your documents, go through the checklist, fill all the form rightly, do exactly what the website has asked you to do, and then you book the appointment in advance so that you don't get stranded whilst you are in Ghana or you are in your home country. Okay, the appointment should be booked in advance, and of course, you should know, you should prepare for the interview. Be ready and apt for the interview, because if you, for instance, you should know where your spouse in Germany is living. So if it's like Luxemburger Straße 124 Cologne, postcode 50939, you should know it by heart. You should know the city where your spouse is staying. Okay, for instance, you should know the school that your spouse is going. If it's Berlin, TH München, or TH which school, you should know what your spouse is studying. Of course, if your spouse is doing IT related courses or studying geography, you should know all these things, because it's just something about the spouse. They want to really know that is she really your spouse? Okay, so all these things should be that you should know all the answers to this question when you are in your home country, right? So this is it. You should make sure that all the prerequisites that qualifies your family members reunion visa should be met. They should be met. Then you should also start collecting the documents. And one thing that you have to bear in mind is that the embassy can require for certified documents. So you should know the type of documents that should be certified. Okay, the embassy must require that. They might require the certified document. So please note that. You should also know that the visa application fee is 75 euros. 75 euros payable in your home currency. Yeah, students. Yes, so these are some of the things you should note if you want to bring your spouse to join you in Germany. Okay, so yeah, please, if you like this video, just give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section, because I answer to every question. I give answers to every question that you have. If only this question is in my domain, then I will have to answer you appropriately. Okay, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. If you are new to this channel, just watch the video, subscribe, and then share to others so people will also profit. Thank you very much for watching my videos. The name still remains Ich bin Alphonsine. Thank you guys. Bye.